Everybody, we're just going to kind of get started. Welcome, Dennis. I see you. So, welcome to Bitcoin Tech Talk. This is a series that we'll be doing to highlight Bitcoin tech. We're here to help bring awareness to all the technological innovation in the Bitcoin space. And to highlight a couple of those technologies today will be Zeta Chain. And then later on in the show, we'll have Emblem Vault coming on and kind of talking about what they're doing. First, I just want to introduce the panelists and kind of discuss also where I'm coming from, which is the Bitcoin Startup Lab. The Bitcoin Startup Lab is a pre-accelerator on Bitcoin. We're here to build investment-ready startups and to help you build those investment-ready startups. It is for founders. We do have our application still open for an extended grace period due to a lot of volume that we got towards the end. So we do have that link in top. If you just want to click that, we just ask if you do decide to sign up, please fill out all of the information there from front to back so that you have a better opportunity for getting an interview to be invited to the program. Just to, again, introduce the panelists, we have Dennis here from Zeta Chain. And then we also have Albert, the CEO of the Bitcoin Startup Lab, who's also up here as a speaker. And like I said, we'll have a group from Emblem Vault a little bit later. So I just wanted to ask Dennis first if you could just do an introduction of yourself and just kind of of Zeta Chain as well, and then Albert, please.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having us. Dennis here from Zeta Chain. I lead developer experience, primarily focusing on tutorials, tooling, documentation. So let me briefly introduce Zeta Chain. Zeta Chain is an L1 EVM compatible blockchain focused on interoperability. It provides a platform for developers to build omni-chain contracts. And omni-chain contract is a contract that you can deploy once to a single chain and then call it from any other connected chain. So you can do cool things like purely decentralized cross-chain swaps. You can swap ETH for Matic or for Bitcoin, for example, and you can also implement other applications. So it's a general purpose smart contract platform that you can deposit tokens from any of the connected chains, and that includes chains that don't have smart contract support, like Bitcoin, which makes it a very interesting platform for people who want to build on Bitcoin, but at the same time want to do it in a decentralized fashion and don't necessarily want to write Bitcoin script, right? They want this level of developer experience that EVM provides, but at the same time, they don't want to depend on a third-party bridge, right? They want to make it in the most decentralized way possible.
Very cool, and I think we're going to hear a lot more of that omni-chain functionality that you're talking about a little bit that you touched on. I think that's really interesting, and really glad to see you guys building on Bitcoin and doing some awesome work there. I just wanted to also ask Albert if you could just give a brief introduction real quick, and then we'll kind of jump into the question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jeff, and excited to hear more about Zeta Chain from Dennis here. As Jeff mentioned, I am the CEO of the Bitcoin Startup Lab. We are a pre-accelerator, and our program is meant to be taken before an accelerator. So up to date, 100% of the teams that went through our program and got into an accelerator, there's a 100% funding rate so far. So it just shows the power of our program. But you know, the whole point of our program is to help you create an investment ready startup, and it is very challenging work. Only about half of the teams will actually get through the entire program. But if you do, you have a much higher chance of not just getting to an accelerator, but also raising pre-seed funding, which is something that you will have to do if you are actually building like a real startup. And so probably the final point I want to make on this, the reason why it's so effective is not only have we run, our team we're at 25 cohorts for pre-acceleration, but the cohort model is far superior to building a startup and learning about how to build an investment startup than say if you're just by yourself and with a couple of advisors. The reason being is that you're in a community with alumni that have built investment ready startups and that have gone into accelerators and raised pre-seed funding, so you could leverage all their experience. But you're also in a court with other champions and then you lift each other up, right? Champions, iron sharpens iron, basically. Champions make champions stronger. And on top of that, you have mentors and investors who are helping you all throughout the way. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. Thanks, Jeff. Back to you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think one interesting thing, like we do work with a lot of different technologies, and now obviously we will be working like with teams from Zeta Chain, which is super exciting. And so I just want to ask Dennis, what does your tech enable developers to build on Bitcoin specifically? If you could kind of just talk more about that, please.
Yeah, so basically what Zeta Chain offers is, again, a platform, right? It's a sovereign EVM chain. It's not an L2. It's a completely separate sovereign proof of stake blockchain that allows developers to write contracts in Solidity, deploy them on Zeta Chain, and these contracts can be called from any connected chain, specifically from Bitcoin, right? What this allows users to do is interact with a contract deployed on Zeta Chain by sending native Bitcoin transactions. So what a user would do, for example, I'm just kind of quickly go through one of the tutorials we have in the docs, is a staking example where a user sends a native transaction on Bitcoin to a special address and deposits this transaction effectively deposits BTC into a TSS address owned by validators of Zeta Chain. And what happens then is a contract on Zeta Chain gets called with the BTC that was deposited into this TSS address. And what you do with these wrapped BTC that you get in your contract on Zeta Chain is really up to you as a developer. In this tutorial, for example, you lock them in a contract and mint tokens as staking rewards. Of course, it's just a tutorial, so it's supposed to be basic, but there are literally no limits on what you can do. You can swap these tokens, you can mint NFTs based on the BTC that was deposited. And yeah, so it's a general purpose platform where you write Solidity contracts that can accept BTC as input. And now the great thing is that this does not require a bridge in traditional sense of the word, right? You typically see bridges that work based on like a multi-sig, or it's even more, it's like a decentralized solution. None of this, you need none of this with Zeta Chain, because validators of Zeta Chain observe Bitcoin, and when they see transactions incoming into this TSS address, they vote on each transaction on Zeta Chain. And if a transaction gets voted, then a wrapped version of BTC is issued on Zeta Chain, and a contract gets access to this wrapped amount of tokens. Of course, users can just deposit tokens to themselves through the same TSS address, but instead of calling a contract, they just specify the address that they want to deposit BTC to, and can manually engage, kind of interact with contracts on Zeta Chain. But the great thing about this solution is that from UX point of view, it has a lot of advantages, because users don't even have to know when they send a transaction that it will be processed on Zeta Chain, because all they see is their Bitcoin wallet and the transaction that they're sending. Right, of course, more advanced users would like to know what happens to their BTC when they send it to someone's address, right? But at the end of the day, the UX is much better, because even for complex multi-step processes, they don't need to approve any kind of transactions except the one that they send on BTC. And the fact that this address on Bitcoin is just a regular address, right? It's not a smart contract. There's no Bitcoin script involved. It's just a simple address. it means that the surface area for attacking this is greatly reduced, right? So this account security depends on how secure the key behind it is, and fragments of this key is owned by validators of Zeta Chain. So this makes for a more secure solution compared to multi-sig bridges, and it provides a great UX for end users.
No, that's really cool. I really like that idea of just like you said, just I guess the term is interoperability, where you can pretty much just, it sounds like you could do a lot. You know, there's a ton of functionality with this, and to be able to work with other chains just opens up a lot of possibilities. And just kind of taking it back to kind of what we do at the Bitcoin Startup Lab. So we work with a lot of different technologies also. And I just wanted to ask James, if you could kind of just talk more about like how the Bitcoin Startup Lab like helps the process for like builders like in the Zeta Chain technology space or any of these other spaces for like finding the fulcrum or going to market or just building an investment ready startup.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So at the Bitcoin Startup Lab, we are a pre-accelerator. So we focus on that foundational structure that people need in order to create an investment-ready startup. So what does that mean? We take people who are in the idea stage as well as very early stages of having an idea. So you by no means need to come in with a full team or a fully fledged out idea to be able to come into our program, but we help guide you from the very basics on how to find a very important pain point in, whatever sector you're looking at, whether it's DeFi or ordinals or, having trading between ordinals, whatever it may be. We want you to find that pain point that speaks to customers. A lot of people who come in think they have the idea and think they have the problem figured out that they want to solve, but there's a lot of assumptions in those usually, and a lot of times people do not solve what they think they're solving, or their app isn't doing what they think it's intended to be. And when they do customer interviews, they find out the customer is actually using their app in a different way that they projected the app being used, or the user's not getting what the intended use is out of the app because of these biases that we have when we come in. So we help you have that foundational structure, how to ask these questions, how to validate, invalidate ideas, go through the entire process. It is painful, but we do help you go through that and find that singular focus so that you can iterate down the line and so that you can create things like your proof of concept and do further customer interviews around that, which will also help your trajectory towards your MVP. So at the Bitcoin Startup Lab, we help you with everything from finding that fulcrum, having a go-to-market strategy, everything from business models to tokenomic structure. We help you with that so that you have the best chance possible by the end of our program, which is 12 weeks, and best chance possible to get that pre-seed funding, get that acceptance into an accelerator, and hit the ground running with a product that gets traction and actually solves a pain in the ecosystem. And we work with providers such as Zeta Chain so that not only is it us helping with this structure, but our partners come in and give the high level overview of what Zeta Chain does, what good use cases it has, what is the best implementation of the technology, what types of apps are we looking for on Zeta Chain at the time. So we help go through and paint a very, very detailed overall picture of what's happening on the ecosystem. And then we have Zeta Chain, for example, their technological team come in and help developers actually implement these implementations into their projects. So it's not just us giving the foundational structure. Here's a couple ideas of technology you could use, and see you later. But we walk you through, handhold you through the whole process, bring in the top dogs to talk about all of the ins and outs, all of the wish list items, and we get you on your feet so that at the end of our program, when you pitch to these investors and to Zeta Chain, etc., you'll be standing on 2 feet and actually have something that matters.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a very good point because I think one of the key things, and I'm going to ask Zeta Chain about this, but it's just building a strong developer base. And obviously, we're singularly focused on Bitcoin, and it sounds like they're transitioning to Bitcoin. So I'm just curious for Dennis, what does your your developer base look like? Obviously, it's omni-chain, so you have several different chains, but specifically on Bitcoin, are you seeing a lot of people starting to kind of like use the technology or just kind of inquire about it since you've kind of entered the space? I'm just kind of curious on that point.
Yeah, developers are definitely interested in that aspect. That's kind of like one of the unique selling points of Zeta Chain is that it supports Bitcoin because what Zeta Chain provides is interoperability layer, right? And there are other players in that area, but most of them are focused on cross-chain messaging, which Zeta Chain also offers, by the way, but you can't really do cross-chain messaging on Bitcoin. That's not really possible, right? And you can't implement something like IBC, which is another interoperability protocol from Cosmos, right? And IBC is great, but you can't really directly connect blockchains to Bitcoin through IBC due to the limited scripting capabilities of Bitcoin. So that's where Zeta Chain comes in, where it doesn't really matter if your chain has scripting capabilities. It just needs uh, a way for validators to have an address on your blockchain, right? Um, and and yeah, that's why developers are very interested. It's because Zeta Chain allows them to tap into this huge uh, potential of Bitcoin's uh, user base and value storage, right? That's what makes it very interesting, right? To make um, make it possible for BTC holders to put their BTC to work, right? And make it more useful at the end of the day without requiring them uh, to have a different wallet or um, learn something new, right? They just interact with Bitcoin and that's it. But under the hood, BTC gets transferred and developers can uh, add more functionality basically to it. And that doesn't it's not limited to just DeFi, for example, right? You can come up with interesting use cases on Zeta Chain uh, that involve NFTs, identity, pretty much anything you want. The point is that you can write a contract that accepts BTC as input, and what do you do then? It's really up to you.
That's awesome. And just to follow up, I'm just curious also in regards to that. How can people learn more about like Zeta Chain? How do you guys kind of share the information for people, like for developers, to be able to find these resources?
Yeah, so we have docs, of course, zetachain.com/docs. You'll find up-to-date, relevant information for developers there. We have very active Discord server. You can find the link on zetachain.com in the footer, a link to the official Discord server, and there's a dev general channel. So if you have questions about how to build on Zeta Chain and connect it to Bitcoin, you can ask there. We have a Telegram, Twitter, of course. But yeah, if you're a developer, the best place to start would be tutorials. We have a few tutorials. One implements a simple cross-chain swap, and it's really simple. It takes about like 60 lines of code in total to implement a decentralized cross-chain swap between Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon, and BSC. And we have a more in-depth tutorial on building a simple staking solution also that also supports Bitcoin. So that's about like 2 to 3 hour tutorial most likely. But yeah, it shows how simple it is to just write a contract, deploy it, and make a test transaction from Bitcoin and stake your tokens and withdraw them back.
Awesome. And also, I just wanted to ask James, because we obviously help a lot of these chains promote their technologies. My question is, how does the Bitcoin Startup Lab empower founders to take advantage of these technologies, and how do we get the word out, so to speak?
Oh, fantastic question. Yeah, that's I have kind of a multifold answer for that. So we work with the protocols to provide the information, like you said. So one place we put the information for how to get started would be in our Discord. We have a resources section where we list out the documentation for our partners, and we try to keep that as up to date as possible so that people can check in on different technical implementations and see what would be best for their projects. On top of that, we talked a little bit about it before, but we bring in the big guns from the protocols to come and talk during our 12-week program so that we can have the most inclusive and well-rounded overview of the ecosystem and what's going on for each chain and implementation. So like Zeta Chain would have talk about everything going on in their ecosystem, what kind of applications and implementations they would like to see happen with them, and it further empower our builders to go ahead and go with those, because those will be the most apt to get funding and investment at the end of the program because of these implementations hitting the mark. On top of that, we also do video series as well, like our Who's Who in Bitcoin series that we have, where we invite our partners to come and discuss a little bit about their history, how the project came to be, what the current state is, what are the wish list items moving forward for the future to be. And we also use that to empower our founders to, take a look at what's going on, build a little rapport there. And, we really just want to be the most objective and information providing entity here in Bitcoin. And that's what we want to do, is empower all builders who want to build on Bitcoin in any way we can. So we work hand in hand with our partners to do just that.
That's a great point. And just kind of, again, diving back into the questions, I wanted to ask Dennis again in regards to like Bitcoin in general. What are some projects that are currently getting you excited? Like, what are some technologies you're seeing, or just different projects that make you excited to be working on Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. So not specifically just on Bitcoin, but like primarily the ones that integrate with Zeta Chain, because I think this omni-chain aspects of them is really cool. So most projects that deploy on Zeta Chain that integrate with Bitcoin, they're not just for Bitcoin. I think that's a good thing, because that's just a different mindset for developers, right? Instead of making their contract compatible with just Bitcoin, they're making a proper omni-chain contract that is compatible with all the chains, compatible with connected to Zeta Chain. And of course, we see projects building in DeFi space because that's the most straightforward, right? The first thing you think about when you think about interoperability is like you implement token swaps. So projects like Eddy Finance is building on Zeta Chain, and they have Bitcoin support from day one, which is pretty cool. Of course, right now it's on testnet since Zeta Chain is in testnet phase, but you can check them out and swap BTC for other tokens on testnet or the other way around. Very nice UI. But we also see apps like Linux that is building a lending protocol. So that's something you probably don't see done in a decentralized way on top of Bitcoin directly, but you can do that with Zeta Chain, which is pretty cool. And yeah, what else? I think gaming projects are gonna be big because there's so many people holding Bitcoin and would like to use it, right? And gaming is just a very natural area where contracts can accept BTC as simple payment, right? So we see projects like P12 and Byte City building on Zeta Chain. So most likely they're going to support Bitcoin if not already. I think P12 solution is actually supports Bitcoin right now, but yeah, I think most builders are encouraged to support Bitcoin just because of the huge user base and the tremendous amount of value that Bitcoin has, and we're just providing utility to it and allowing users to put their BTC to work in a decentralized way.
No, that's great. And I can definitely see like you guys opening up a lot of new opportunities like for technology to build. I'm just curious, like obviously you guys know the Bitcoin halving is coming up. What do you think the implementation or implications, if I could say that right, for that the Bitcoin halving is for your technology and Bitcoin in general? Do you see a major boost happening again, or are you expecting a larger developer base as well to kind of come in at that time, or are you already seeing pretty strong traction, as mentioned before with the testnet?
So I think with Bitcoin halving is uh, what's going to happen is more people are going to look into how to um, how to use Bitcoin, but not necessarily do that on L1, right? So um, this opportunity for them to deposit BTC into a secure TSS address and actually use the wrapped version for the majority of their transactions, I think that could become very useful. Um, I uh, I can't really say beyond that, but I think just providing a way to use BTC and kind of play with it with all the contracts deployed on Zeta Chain without necessarily making transactions on Bitcoin to do that, but still do that in a decentralized way, right? It's not like it's a centralized database where you're still doing it on chain, but you're not doing that on Bitcoin. Um, and at the same time, you can withdraw the tokens that you deposited uh, at any point in time very quickly back to Bitcoin if you need to.
Yeah, I know, totally understand that, and I'm just curious too. Like you mentioned, gaming on Zeta Chain. Are you guys? You see a lot of gaming already on the other chains. Kind of like from what you've seen, how much does that come into play with your current technology and building on Bitcoin? Do you really see that being a major factor? Because I do think gaming is a huge emerging market. It can have a major impact.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not a game developer, but uh, just just knowing how many Bitcoin holders there are and who would be willing to engage in kind of gaming apps, um, I think I think games should focus on gameplay first. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, right? But I think if those teams building gaming would first focus on like building actual great games and then just opening up to crypto payments, that would make it for much better product than building a crypto game first. Because I've personally never played crypto first games, so I think there's a lot to be built in that area, right? Like we need to convince projects that have successful track record in traditional gaming to build on blockchain, and I think we're making progress there. Like projects like Byte City, they actually built not Web 2, but like traditional games that are not connected with blockchain, and they made this leap into blockchain. And I think we're going to see more of this happening just because it's just such a natural fit for crypto to have games that at least accept cryptocurrency as input, right? As payment. Of course, much more can be done because blockchain is not just for cryptocurrencies, right? It's much more, but I think that would be a great step, and we're starting to see projects that actually have experience building engaging games build on blockchain, which is cool.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I just wanted to ask you too, what specific resources, grants, or et cetera, are you offering to founders for building startups with Zeta Chain?
If you go to zetachain.com/grants, you will see the grants program we currently have. Quite a few projects that we have on our ecosystem page have actually applied and received grants through this program. So it's definitely working, and we've connected with quite a few impressive teams building in crypto that started building on Zeta Chain exactly through this program. So if you're interested in building omni-chain contracts, if you're interested in building on Bitcoin, and you have an idea, and I strongly encourage you to check it out. So it's zetachain.com/grants. You'll see some examples of what we think would be interesting areas in which to build. But I mean, of course, you're free to come up with something original. But there are also requirements and kind of like guidelines on how we see these grant projects to be. So yeah, please check it out and apply on our website.
No, that's great. I mean, I think you guys offer a ton of resources and you make it really easy for developers to be successful. I'm just curious from James from the Bitcoin Startup Lab. Obviously, we take an approach to kind of through the mentoring and kind of helping these founders kind of build their technologies and build their projects. What would you say is kind of like some of the tools that we offer for founders to be able to like reach their goals for raising funding?
Can you please repeat that question one more time, Jeff? You cut out a little bit in there.
Yeah, for sure. So I was just curious, like with the Bitcoin Startup Lab, what are some key tools and resources like that we offer for founders to be able to raise funding? We just got kind of done talking with what Zeta Chain kind of has to offer. Just curious to hear from your standpoint that you could let people know kind of how we help people kind of reach their financial goals for their projects.
Yeah. Good question. So, we talked a little bit earlier about the structure of the program and how we help empower founders from the idea stage all the way through their proof of concept and minimal viable product. We also, a little more of the, I guess, less tangible, but very, very, very important is the networking aspect that we provide. So not only do we provide you know, opportunities for co-founder matching, because having a stronger team and having a team in general, people who can, who are apt and can actually accelerate your project, that is a very, very big part of the equation for us in helping people get funding. There's a lot of our investors in our accelerators, people in our network who look through these teams and look for something to invest in, want to see a strong team that is very well and capable of, executing. So that is one thing. But two, we have meetings, we have sessions with investors as well towards the end of our program, towards the time where we have our demo day at the end of the program, so that our teams have a warm introduction to our investor network, so that when it does come down to demo day, the investors have a introduction to you already. They're a little bit familiar with what you're working on, and they are more likely to talk with you and have discussions around investment because there is that rapport being built, unlike going out and pitching to investors or accelerator programs completely cold. So again, we hand in hand walk people through the entire process, as well as make these introductions and try to bridge the gaps wherever gaps could occur, so that our teams have the best chance possible to get funding at the end of the program. And that also means working with protocols and their grant initiatives as well. So we provide all of the information to our teams who need that information, teams who are building with said technologies. We give them all of the information they need so that they can apply for the grant program, and they'll have some rapport built with people like Dennis and Zeta Chain, so that they're not just going in blind. They're going in with the best chance possible and actually, driving it home and making something that matters for Zeta Chain.
That's perfect. And I think it's key, like a lot of the educational process and just kind of helping people to be able to develop on these new technologies. And just kind of speaking more on Zeta Chain specifically, Dennis, I was curious, like, what are the security benefits to like using Zeta Chain? Because I have a strong feeling that I'm sure you guys probably implemented a lot of security just to, avoid any issues or any people kind of like hacking, into the technology or just creating problems for developers.
Well, right now people are definitely trying to hack into Zeta Chain because we're in the testnet phase. So that's the whole point. We're undergoing security audits, and we have a bug bounty for people to actually find problems in the tech before we go mainnet. So I'm sure people are doing it right now. If something like this, if people find issues, we are fixing them as soon as we can. And yeah, we had I believe 3 audits already, with fourth um, ongoing. Don't quote me on this, but we definitely had a few audits already completed. So so yeah, and the code is open source, so everyone is encouraged to check it out, run a node, try to break it, and if you can, then go to our Immunify page where we have bug bounties and contact us. That's just a great way to contribute to the project. Uh, just add this to your portfolio of projects that you contributed to, earn some rewards through the bounty program, and just make Zeta Chain a better project overall.
No, that's great. And just curious, like when you guys developed Zeta Chain, what was your initial motivation to do so? What were you kind of looking to do? Because I'm not sure how long you guys have been around, or kind of like what your plans are specifically, like with the entire space. So I was just curious if you could kind of highlight, like, what made you guys start the project, and kind of like also where you plan to go with the project in the future, even if it's beyond Bitcoin, but obviously talking more about the Bitcoin part of it.
Yeah, so I actually joined the project in April this year. So I can't speak like what the founders thought when they started Zeta Chain a couple of years ago. I believe it was in 2021. But I have a lot of experience contributing to Cosmos. I've been an active contributor since 2019, so right after Cosmos Hub launched. And what the reason why I got interested in Zeta Chain was this interoperability aspect of it and the focus on creating a platform where all the blockchains are connected to each other and developers are given tools to build contracts that you can really um, uh, not really think about as an end user which chain you're interacting with. You just uh, move your assets or call contracts on other chains without necessarily knowing how it works under the hood with this great UX. So I think this focus on interoperability is what sets Zeta Chain apart, and the approach that Zeta Chain took with Omnichain rather than focusing purely on cross-chain messaging is the key, because well, with Omnichain we can support chains like Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and whatever else. But I think in the future, uh, most likely after mainnet, the project will uh, focus on adding more chains so that it truly becomes like this hub of interoperability between not only EVM chains and Bitcoin, but also other chains that are not currently connected in a decentralized way. But what I'm also super excited about is when on-chain contracts get NFT support. This is, of course, kind of work in progress, still in research phase, but at some point, Omnichain will definitely support NFTs. Right now, you can mint NFTs on Zeta Chain triggered by Bitcoin transactions, but you can't really move them back to Bitcoin because that's a harder problem to solve. But I think once Zeta Chain um, solves this challenge, it would be really cool, because this will open kind of a new layer of interoperability where you not only will you be able to move value in fungible assets, but you will be able to move kind of more arbitrary data, including NFTs. And I think that would be a cool, real next step in the evolution of omni-chain contracts.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. And I'm just curious, like again, talking about Zeta Chain and like Omni-chain contracts, how many chains do you guys currently support at this time, and how many are you looking to support in the future?
So in the testnet phase, it was important for the project to support at least a few EVM chains, just to kind of make a proof of concept that yeah, that this works for sure. We didn't have a goal to add as many chains as possible in testnet phase, just because if you support Ethereum, Polygon, BSC, then any EVM chain can be added pretty easily. And uh, the second most important thing, well, not the second, but the other important thing was to support chains like Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin was added next. So right now in testnet phase, we have 4 chains supported, but of course, after mainnet launch, we'll be focusing on adding more chains, specifically more EVM chains, because it's easier to do, but also uh, non-smart contract chains, just because they're the ones least likely to be connected through other systems. So most likely there's a lot of demand from people using these chains to be able to move assets between between these chains. So I think adding support for other non-smart contract chains would be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because I do see, like obviously the overall crypto community is large as a whole, but I think like discoverability for Bitcoin, like programmability and scalability is important. And I think to be able to educate those people and other chains is equally as important. And the best way, I would say is like to be able to offer like an omni chain where, all these different developers can kind of connect and see what each other are doing. I'm just kind of curious. Well, before I actually ask that question, I just wanted to ask everybody here if you could just retweet the space just so we could share it out. We'd greatly appreciate it. Again, we're with the Bitcoin Startup Lab. We're pre-accelerated on Bitcoin, and we've opened up a grace period for our application process. It's in the very top if you want to click that. Again, if you decide to fill out an application, please fill out the entire application so that we're able to get you interviewed and then go from that point and getting you accepted in the program. But just curious, Dennis, how are things going on testnet for you, and when are you looking at an actual mainnet launch? Do you have a date kind of set for that, or are you just still kind of just going through the process?
Um, yeah, so testnet is going very actively. We have a bunch of contracts deployed, and people are using these testnet contracts from partner projects and uh, any project that decide to build on Zeta Chain, right? So it's a good a playground for both developers and users to try it out. And um, we had a swap demo application online, and like during this period, we had so much traffic going on because people were really enjoying these cross-chain swaps, even though on their testnet, it's still pretty cool to see them happening fairly quickly. We had a lot of traffic there, but now we're focusing more on partner projects and kind of prioritizing them instead, uh, so that we can prepare for mainnet and prepare these partner projects as well for mainnet. We don't have a set date as far as I know, but it's we're planning on launching in early Q1 next year.
That's awesome. That's right around the corner, so that's pretty encouraging. And I just wanted to ask for James. I know like we're talking about testnet with these guys, but if you could just highlight how like what the Bitcoin Startup Lab does, kind of from now we don't just do like testnet. We take ideas from the idea stage. Maybe talking about co-founder matching and how we help people to kind of develop those ideas. If you could, please.
Yeah. I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but we do take people from the idea stage. You don't have to have a team formed already, and you definitely don't have to have a product, not even in mind, but definitely you don't have to have one built already. We help walk you through from ideation stage all the way to MVP stage, and that's gonna take a few iterations usually. And we're here to help you through those iterations and that potential pain that you might feel going through the process of thinking, you have the idea down, you have the problem down, and it's time to build. But when you do your customer interviews, there can be some differences in thought between yours and what the customer thinks. So we help teach people how to go through that process and how to properly iterate. And yeah, when it comes to testnet, mainnet things, we help people get on that testnet. If testnet's available, then we obviously want our teams to be on the cutting edge and on the forefront of innovation. So in this instance with Zeta Chain, we would work with their team hand in hand to get our teams onto their testnet and move around and build their product with the help of Zeta Chain so that when things do go fully live, go full main net, we'll all be ready for that. The teams will be positioned for that, and they'll help propel the forefront of Zeta Chain and their main net.
That's perfect. Yeah, definitely. Like we for sure try to help set up our partners and our founders who are using partner technology to definitely be very super successful in everything they do. And I'm just curious with Zeta Chain, I know you mentioned some of the grants and other things you're offering developers. After a founder develops a project within your chain or your protocol, what do you guys do after that? Do you guys also kind of help them through the process? Are there also additional resources after the startup phase that kind of allows the developer and the project to grow within Zeta Chain?
So I think I mean, I'm not the expert on Zeta Chain's grants program, but I believe the grants program kind of covers the whole life cycle. So it's not about just getting a grant, building something on testnet and forgetting about it. So it's a full kind of full cycle of support, both from technical support. That's where I'm more familiar with, because I'm talking with grant recipients on a daily basis, helping them build a better product and integrate with Zeta Chain, resolve their issues, whatever they might be. But there's also marketing support, and kind of it goes from zero to actually being there with us on mainnet. That's why we're selecting these projects very carefully, and we're not just giving away grants to random projects. We really want to find the right people, the right teams to build something special with the special tech that we're building.
I can give you some introduction here on the grants. I lead the grants at Zeta Chain as well as the ecosystem. So usually the grants are quite focused for building something 0 to 1, and especially something that is really using the functionality of Omni-chain smart contracts and building something new. So grants so far has been very focused on developing new ecosystem and building new good products. Uh, yeah, and those are usually milestone based, and we are working quite closely with these projects to build something really new and something that actually adds value to our ecosystem as well as other ecosystem, and especially on the Bitcoin end. So there are a few applications where we're actually trying to bring Bitcoin to AVM community, which I think is quite powerful, especially on the liquidity end. So most of our applications are revolving around BTC as a priority, but there are a few other social fi and gaming projects which are also coming in.
No, that's perfect. That's a perfect outline. Exactly what the information I was looking for there. So thank you so much. I'm just curious for Zeta Chain, what would you guys say are the best startup ideas that you think could be built on the protocol? And kind of what are the most competitive ideas as well, for your protocol?
Uh, yeah, I think the most competitive that I can see so far is mainly to Bitcoin DeFi. I think just using Bitcoin as the core and building CDP models or lending or algorithmic stable coins with it, and just cross-chain swap or bringing derivative projects on BTC or having RWS with BTC. I think these are some of the most exciting use cases so far for us because we natively support Bitcoin, and I think that really enables to use the Bitcoin, which is actually sitting idle in most of the wallets, which is the most powerful. And the another one is I'm more excited is on the social fi, or I would say more into gaming, uh, intersection of gaming and social fi, where the crypto economics could actually be utilizing BTC and not really launching new tokens and shielding it. So I think there's more to what you can use Bitcoin and how you can actually bring it to the real front phase of the market and have the trust which already it has and build some really good applications on top of it. So yeah, I think we are quite bullish on what we can accomplish with BTC in general at this point.
I just wanted to quickly add to this is I think building a restaking protocol on top of Zeta Chain for Bitcoin would be very cool. I'm not sure how I would go about doing this. I just created a very simple tutorial that just shows the basics of what you need to do. But I think using Bitcoin to increase the security of Zeta Chain would be really cool, where you would have proper Bitcoin staking on Zeta Chain. This will have both kind of rewards and slashing built into it to make it interesting for stakers to actually deposit Bitcoin. So yeah, we've seen quite a few projects doing this outside of Zeta Chain, kind of general purpose restaking platforms, but this is something you can build for Bitcoin on top of Zeta Chain. So I'm quite excited about that.
Very cool. And I just wanted to ask also, James, in regards to in regards to startup ideas, being built on the protocol and being competitive, how can the Bitcoin Startup Lab support in that process?
I
Absolutely.
can, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, if we want to touch on wish list items and building things out like that, that is something that, you come into the Bitcoin Startup Lab, and we help you get everything together from the idea to business structure and business model to finding a team or having a team, but also working with Zeta Chain and their technical team to be able to implement or build wish list items like this. Yeah, if you want to be on the forefront of innovation and you want to actually help Zeta realize some of these ideas and try them out and make iterations with them and kind of start, I guess, crashing the party in that sense. That's what we're here to do. We're here to work together and empower any types of ideas and figure out what is possible. Jeff, maybe you can speak a little bit to it, since actually you went through our program last summer.
Yes, yeah. So for me, it was definitely transformative. I like 100% wasn't sure what I was gonna do, and I didn't have a co-founder. But thanks to the program and just thanks to the benefits that were offered because of it, I was able to meet really, really highly intelligent people who were very motivated and had pretty much like projects and products that they were building. And I was able to connect with a really great builder, or several really great builders, and it really helped me like to develop and understand a larger foundation for all the chains. So it really opened up a lot of the opportunities for me and also helped me to connect with a lot of different protocols. So I think for me, the Bitcoin Startup Lab was like huge, and obviously I'm here now, doing this. So obviously I'm a true believer. But I also just want to say, it's a good experience. It's definitely worth going through the process if you just have an idea, and even if you're a solo founder, they'll help you to find a different co-founder. Just don't be married to your idea. Just be open, because things do change in the world of Bitcoin and technology every day. Just like as we're talking about Zeta Chain and their omni-chain platform. I mean, it's very different than what was kind of happening on Bitcoin initially, and now we're getting more into more scalable technology. So it's awesome. And speaking of more scalable technologies, I saw our second guest arrive, so I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves. And before I do that, I just again ask if you could just share the space and get it out there. We're here with Zeta Chain and now with Emblem Vault. So I just wanted to ask the team at Emblem Vault if you could just give a brief overview, a brief introduction and an overview of your technology, please.
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me up here. Adam's also in the crowd, who works at Emblem Vault too. If you want to invite him up, we could kind of tag team this. My name is Jake Allen. I joined Emblem in November of last year. Emblem's a crypto tool that's been around in some capacity since 2014. Our founder, Shannon Code, actually was a dev at Mastercoin back in 2013-14. So the history of Emblem Vault goes actually all the way back to Bitcoin and existed on Counterparty in 2019 in some capacity, and then moved to Ethereum in 2020, kind of in light of where the current state of the Bitcoin development ecosystem was kind of resistant to change or to develop ongoing developments, which ordinal theories kind of helped push now. But what Emblem Vault is an alternative to a bridge or a wrapping function. It allows you to trade any digital asset from any blockchain on any blockchain using this idea of what's called a vault, which is essentially a tokenized wallet. And I know we can go and explain on this for a lot, but I'll kind of give you two metaphors to kind of really picture it, because the Emblem Vault technology is very broad. In this metaphor, if blockchains are countries and layer twos and dApps are cities, then Emblem Vault is this shipping center that allows you to move packages that contain various digital assets to any blockchain, whether it's a proof of work chain or a EVM chain. And this is where Emblem Vault found a lot of adoption in 2021 and 2023 through counterparty NFTs and then ordinal NFTs and Bitcoin Stamp NFTs, because it's the only interoperability protocol that exists that allows proof of work assets to safely trade and exist on EVM chains. I know it's kind of a lot, but I will pass it off to Adam, because Adam also does a great job at simplifying it, and I tend to ramble a little bit.
Well, it is complicated, but that's blockchains. But basically, it allows you to trade your NFTs on other chains, and so we found a lot of product market fit just enabling counterparty assets and rare pepes to find liquidity on Ethereum. That's been where we found our product market fit, but it's much larger than that, as a lot of things in blockchain are. But you got to lean into what got you there, and what got us there was these historical NFTs allowed them to trade on OpenSea and Ethereum, to now where almost all it's like over 80% of all trading volume ever on counterparty has actually taken place on OpenSea and Ethereum, and that's all through Emblem Vault. So that's kind of what we are.
No, that's really cool. And I'm just curious, I obviously, like, that's where I kind of discovered you guys originally, but you guys obviously, know now there's programmability on the Bitcoin ecosystem. Obviously, I'm sure you're well aware of it. Do you guys have a plan to incorporate kind of ordinals into like kind of future development or Bitcoin technology? I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are with that.
1,000,000%. It's actually one of the first things we're going to do on our roadmap after we're finishing our kind of latest migration is basically create vaults on ordinals or as ordinals that'll allow assets from other chains, like you could bring your Bitcoin or CryptoPunk over onto Bitcoin and trade it as an ordinal. But so that's definitely on the roadmap. That's going to happen, I'd say, within the next 6 months. And so bringing these assets to Bitcoin, to the liquidity that's available on Bitcoin, I think is really exciting. Obviously we're all in the ordinal space. We're loving ordinals, but it's still very much early days, right? But there is all this liquidity on Bitcoin, and being able to allow assets from basically every other chain to come back to Bitcoin, I think is super exciting.
Yeah, we actually just had this conversation right before this call, actually, on a team call, about the various ways that Emblem can deploy on Bitcoin. And actually, a lot of people don't know this. There's actually Emblem Vault already exists on Counterparty that they initially attempted in 2021. Come to find out, the Counterparty infrastructure is a little bit limited, and Ordinals has blossomed to become kind of this full ecosystem for developers, collectors, and creators. So that seems like the most logical approach right now, is to do it with Ordinals. And you can really start thinking about all of the possibilities. If you could bring any asset to Bitcoin in this more trustless manner, right? You could start denominating CryptoPunks in Bitcoin, or you could start swapping OMBs for Bored Apes, or you could bring any type of fungible currency. Like, there are many options and possibilities that can happen when Emblem does deploy on ordinals. And I think that's what gets a lot of interest in Emblem as this kind of multi-chain tool. Some ecosystems and communities try to keep everything very natively, but we believe that the future is multi-chain, but more so that the best option moving forward is to be able to leverage blockchains to their strengths, and being able to embrace that, right? So like Ethereum right now with NFTs, the most liquidity for NFTs exists on Ethereum. Meanwhile, Bitcoin is kind of moving to this, or the Bitcoin NFT ecosystem is kind of this idea of high value art, or inscribing data onto the blockchain. And so if you can kind of create this ecosystem to where we can leverage those types of strengths of ordinals with Emblem Vault, I think it'll bring a big rush of additional liquidity and interest over to ordinals.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I want to touch on something you mentioned, actually, for both of us. It sounds like both you guys are into like the kind of the multi-chain, like more like, in my opinion, futurist idea. Like, I think, in my opinion, it's critical to be multi-chain, because you don't want to, segment any user to a specific chain. If they prefer to use that chain, but they want to sell a different item on a different chain, no problem. So I'm just curious. First, I'm going to ask Dennis, what are your thoughts just on a multi-chain future? Why do you think it's important? And then the team from Emblem Vault, if you could just follow that up as well, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm kind of biased because I've been contributing to Cosmos since 2019, and Cosmos is all about interoperability, right? There are more than 50 blockchains interconnected right now in the ecosystem, and what I love about Zeta Chain is that it kind of complements that by providing a smart contract layer that is also as interoperable as Cosmos itself, and beyond that by connecting Bitcoin, because you can't really directly connect Cosmos to Bitcoin without an intermediary. So I strongly believe that there's going to be thousands and tens of thousands of chains, and I think the recent migrations like DYDX, for example, who moved to Cosmos, to their own Cosmos chain just recently, it kind of proves this thesis that eventually dApps outgrow their host platform, and they start thinking about having their own ledger, and their maybe they need changes to the consensus protocol, right? Like something is not working for them. They need they need something that their host platform does not provide. And yeah, that's just the way it goes. And I think Zeta Chain could play a crucial role in that, because the more chains we have, the more interoperability solutions become important, because you can't just have 10,000 chains and let the user decide how to move assets around. That's just not possible. You need to build not only you need to build bridges, but you actually need to connect the chains in the most seamless ways possible from UX point of view.
Yeah, I would layer on, totally agree with you. I would just layer on that, the idea we're in what I call the clunky stage of blockchain technology, right? Where it's like so many of us are siloed, right? Either we're on Ethereum or we're on Tezos or Solana or wherever, right? And people get siloed, they have their wallet, they don't want to switch to another wallet. It just feels like, I know we're at this early stage where everything is super siloed, and definitely what we're looking forward to at Emblem is this idea where the user doesn't know what's going on in the background, doesn't really know. They might know that, okay, their CryptoPunk's on Ethereum natively, but they're still using it in a game on Solana, right? And they don't know how that's working, but it's working. And like that's really what we're building at Emblem, where you're creating this kind of invisible infrastructure in the background where people just use blockchain technology, but they don't care how it's working. It's just working. That's the future we're building for.
Yeah, it's when you look at also just like the history of interoperability or blockchain interoperability, it started with Bitcoin, right? The atomic swap was kind of the first idea put out around like 2012, 2013. And then it happened in 2017, I believe, on the Lightning Network. And then since that first atomic swap, users have tried to find ways to, take Bitcoin liquidity and bring it to other ecosystems through like different types of bridging infrastructure. And that's kind of where the interoperability still exists today, is taking Bitcoin assets to other chains, generally for kind of liquidity purposes. Right, with like wrapped Bitcoin, you kind of see that. And I would say even so much now with Thorchain kind of just having this amazing kind of run, where you can now swap native Bitcoin for native Ethereum. I think it just kind of shows the real amount of interest in the interoperability. But what not a lot of people have really explored is this idea of taking things to Bitcoin. And so this is, where at Emblem, we're kind of going to be one of the first people through the door to really explore what that means. It could be a complete flop and there's not a lot of interest. And it turns out users just want to take the value and collateral of pristine assets, whether it's ordinals or native Bitcoin, and bring it to other ecosystems. But on the complete opposite side of that, it's just no one has been able to do this yet. And so I think it's a huge blue ocean there for a lot of opportunity to also improve on a lot of the creativity, that can be expelled over there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think like we're just kind of like dipping our toes into how far like Bitcoin technology is really going to go. There's so many new developers in the space, and I think I've seen most of that again, like I said, through the Bitcoin Startup Lab. I've just been exposed to so many different technologies on Bitcoin that have been building pre-ordinals and that are building after ordinals. And it just seems there's been an acceleration since BRC20 and ordinals came out of people interested in building in this technology or just incorporating this technology. So just kind of thinking about that, I'm just curious your guys' thoughts. Where do you guys see Bitcoin technology in the next 3 years? I'm just going to start this time with Emblem Vault and then with Dennis, please.
Oh man. So for 3 years from now, I actually think there's going to be a lot. I think right now we're about to go through a phase of just Bitcoin protocol experimentation. When you look prior to ordinals, there's really maybe 10 protocols at most that existed in the history on top of Bitcoin, right? If you go all the way from like Mastercoin to colored coins to Counterparty to things like Stacks and what was the other one? You had the Lightning Network and Liquid Network. So really not that much. But now since Ordinals has popped up, you have Ordinal Theory, you have Atomicals, you have New Bitcoin City, you have Runes, you have Pipe, right? There's just Tap. There's so many that are going to be popping up. I think this next bull run, this one that we're about to enter, I think that is going to literally just take or reach exponential kind of takeaway. You'll probably end up with like hundreds. Ultimately, a lot of them probably, will fail. But I think, through this bull run, we'll really see what Bitcoin's about. What else can Bitcoin do? Or more so saying, what are users interested in Bitcoin outside of it as just using it as this type of like pristine collateral? So that's kind of really what I'm looking forward to. I think it's really hard to put a point and say like what's going to be successful, what's not. It does seem like, just storing data is very interesting. Fungible tokens seems to be by far the number one interest. And I think we'll see some other things pop up, but just pay attention to the experimentation. And also if you're a trader, will probably be a lot of opportunities to, reap some of that value as well.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping that more Web2 apps will be integrated with Bitcoin. I mean, people have been talking about this for forever, but like at some point, Twitter should allow you to keep Bitcoin associated with your accounts and send it to users. Like I know maybe some hardcore Bitcoin fans are not a fan of this particular development, but this could definitely bring Bitcoin into hands of more regular, normal people, which is good. And another thing, I think more Bitcoin will be in circulation, kind of in other platforms, not necessarily L2s, but just platforms that interoperate, that are interoperable with Bitcoin and that provide more functionality to it. So, and that's also not bad because if it's done in a decentralized way, and you can easily move BTC back and forth from it, from these platforms, I think this could open up a lot of space for experiments and finding more utility without necessarily having to build on top of Bitcoin directly, right? So again, this might not be something that hardcore fans are interested in, but there are many EVM developers, for example, and allowing them to use Bitcoin in their dApps, I think is really powerful, and I'm hoping to see that in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I just like you guys talked about, I've watched various Bitcoin technologies kind of develop in the past. And yeah, like the bull run, what it does, it's like a purification model. You see a lot of new technologies kind of come into it, And then, as they cycle through, you start to see what's real and what's not, especially towards the end. I would say towards the end more than even in the beginning. You start to see the people who are, kind of propping themselves up, or just, maybe getting some investment and just trying to push something for a long period of time, but they really don't have the developer community behind them. And so, yeah, like was mentioned also, I think it was either Jake or Adam talking about like the different technologies, like, and you guys nailed it, like you're saying pipe and rune, and there's just so many new things being developed that we don't even know exactly, what we're going to end up with, in the next few years. But that's with our program, kind of like what we do, just to kind of like discuss that a little bit. We pretty much we highlight not only like the current technologies, but the technologies that companies want to use. But we also try to highlight, like, obviously our partner technologies, but and also try to highlight what we think is going to be, essentially like technologies that are going to be around for a while, because the founders that we work with, we have a working relationship with them. They essentially become our partners also. We want to see them succeed. And so it's important for us that they are in a technology that they can leverage, that's not just going to kind of just run its course within, like, a few months. So, and it's kind of hard with Bitcoin to understand that, but through our partner relationships, we have a deeper understanding of the technology, because we're talking to different developers and the people who run the protocols, such as Zeta Chain. So they help to give us that insider information so that we could point them in the right direction. And Adam, go ahead. You had a question.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting point to talk about what we think is next, because I just encourage people to actually look what was kind of tried before and failed. I mean, just as Jake and I both kind of NFT and blockchain historians have seen again and again, it's just often these ideas have already been circulated, and just they come around to a time when it works correctly, because either the tech, caught up to it, or the market caught up to it, the community caught up to it. There were enough people finally involved to make it happen. I mean, we've already seen it with NFTs. We've seen it. I mean, real world assets, which are actually hitting right now. This was talked back in the color coin days, right? And now it's just like they've finally arrived, where we're getting like Pokemon cards are working, on chain and stuff. So, I encourage, people who are developing or thinking about developing something to really just kind of, you don't necessarily have to come up with a completely unique idea. Just kind of look at what's been discussed before and didn't quite work. Like a lot of these kind of the things we've been talking about, like the time is finally here, because the tech and the market has finally caught up with it.
Yeah, you go back to colored coins. I mean, you had people like Nilly Coins really experimenting with the idea of what a sat or a colored coin could represent outside of its fungible value. And then you go to Counterparty, and really in 2014, you start seeing a handful of individual creators kind of coalescing around the same idea of saying, hey, I could take this Counterparty token, and if you buy it, this represents, one ASIC miner, or it represents this painting. And there's literally 5 to 10 different experiments of that in 2014 on Counterparty. So, real world assets began on Bitcoin. It'll be interesting to see if that emerging technology makes it back to Bitcoin in some capacity, or if it kind of stays on Ethereum. But you would think it would likely be better on Bitcoin, as it's more secure. But obviously, there's this kind of functionality trade-offs. So I'd be interested to see, this run. And as you had mentioned, Jeff, it is important to pay attention to what happens at the end of this bull run, and not more so at the beginning, because as we know, a lot of projects end up falling off, or people rug, or whatever the case is. But moving kind of past this, this technically savvy type medium of, having to know what's a BRC20, or having to know how Bitcoin works. Like, once we could kind of move past that and abstract that away, I think you'll see just a really, really large flow of innovation come to Bitcoin. It's just right now, it's all the nerds of us just kind of hanging out, and honestly, I have to have them explain everything to me, because I'm not a dev. So it becomes a little bit even more complicated.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I do think there's definitely different people in the space. I think it's, majority when it started was mainly devs. And it's kind of funny, like if you follow Bitcoin from the beginning, and I think I came in like 2018, but I at least know some of the history. But just from that standpoint in Ethereum, it's a lot of the discoverability is done by devs. Like they discover, and typically they find it in the code before it even hits the mainstream. Now they're so fast to take advantage of it. But once word gets out there, it's possible that there's money to be made somewhere. Doesn't even matter what it is. I mean, BRC20 was a perfect example. It was, it was an idea that Domo came up with, and it was simple. It was just basically text, on the blockchain. But then, someone realized, hey, we can actually make money off this. And I think I'll give credit to Unisat for that, really, because I think Unisat was really the project that they they kind of made it more mainstream. Now it was out there and things were being traded before Unisat ever had a marketplace, but I feel like they kind of once they opened up their marketplace, it just kind of flooded. And so it's cool to see that, but like you guys mentioned, it has to be more accessible to regular people. And I mean, and people cannot they don't want to go through all the nuances of the different technology. Like for example, for BRC20, as you knew, like you had to go through a very distinct process in order to get the actual token in your wallet and then sell it. It was kind of a nightmare in the beginning, but you just went through it because it was free money basically. So a lot of people are willing to learn, if there's profit involved. But I'm just curious, you guys at Emblem Vault, you guys are really like trying to change the game, like you said. You really want to make it so that people aren't like thinking, "Hey, is this Bitcoin? Do I need to have this wallet and do this and have like this process for it?" How are you guys planning kind of to implement that, and kind of what are your future plans?
Yeah, so it's actually good timing because we just announced at Pepe Fest last month that we're going to be launching Emblem Markets, which is more than just a marketplace. It is going to be a multi-chain marketplace, but it's also going to be an Emblem platform so that we could release different types of applications that are by Emblem, and also those who choose to build on top of Emblem Vault as well. There's maybe 10 projects or so that are using Emblem APIs in some capacity to apply to their services. And so we're going to really create this, unique, multi-chain kind of experience on Emblem Markets, where it's going to start with just Ethereum, but Emblem is also kind of already deployed on Polygon and BNB. And then once that's kind of situated and we're past migration, then we're going to deploy on ordinals. And it's really, again, we're trying to make it, as Adam noted, is this experience where all the wires are really hidden and it just looks like this very unique experience. And we're also working with a marketplace provider to really build some special tooling that doesn't exist on any other marketplace, so that we can really make this unique experience and make it really frictionless. Because at the end of the day, for us, the reason to take things across chains, it varies. We have people who reach out to us and they say, hey, I want to take or here we use like a big example, like Punk 6529. He's probably, that team is by far probably our biggest user base, or team collectively that owns, a lot of value there. They're not looking to trade their rare Pepes and their Spells of Genesis and their Bitcoin NFTs. They're looking to take those and hang it up in their open metaverse, his open metaverse on Ethereum, and go hang his rare Pepes, in his on Cyber gallery. So, right, that's not like a speculative use case. That's like an actual utility use case. Whereas you have other like kind of rare Pepe artists or creators who are taking their rare Pepes and going and borrowing and lending on Arcade or on NFTFi, right? Kind of trying to get their value. And then you have people experimenting with like fractionalization. And so for us, it's really hard to predict like what is that big use case for each chain. And so we just want to make it as frictionless as possible, so that the users can open up this page. And yes, there's like a lot of options, but it could be able to speak to whatever the user is, of whether they want that utility or they want that financial aspect. It's really open. So we're trying to make that as frictionless as possible, kind of moving forward, and it all happen on Emblem Markets.
No, that's awesome, and I think that's important. And I'm just curious. This is kind of a little off topic, but Emblem Markets. So you're going to be selling also like NFTs from different chains as well. Are you guys into the royalties? That's a big issue, and I'm just bringing that up because I just saw, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, Magic Eden and Yuga Labs has partnered essentially to launch a forced they call it a different term, but basically you have to pay royalties for any ETH NFT listed on that marketplace. So I'm curious, are you guys kind of in that same vein? Because it sounds like you guys are definitely like you've been around for long enough to see kind of the royalty battle and kind of see how it's kind of played out for different factions. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a tough topic. We at Emblem, we believe, or kind of like we try to look at the data most. To us, it kind of feels like royalties are pretty much going to zero. but there's other ways that Emblem can offer creator royalties or offerings through our different products. And so we're exploring things that are non-standard, maybe that require different types of EIPs to produce, and really come at it and through a different direction. The current whack-a-mole system that's going on right now of marketplace enforced royalties and blocking others, to us, it just doesn't feel that effective. It feels very inevitable. But Emblem is in this unique position because it's a product and it'll also have a marketplace. So all the collections that we deploy can exist on OpenSea, but then we have Emblem Markets, which then moves Emblem Vault to the marketplace fee. So it gives us that ability to offer royalties. And, you know, Rare Pepes is by far the Pepe community is by far our largest community. So we will be exploring that with them first to kind of see what the market dynamics are. But we're kind of looking at the bigger picture here of what Emblem Vault really is. And if we're creating this multi-chain marketplace, you know, we're not making we're not creating competition on the blockchains themselves, right, between marketplaces, right? So like this idea of like Blur versus OpenSea versus Magic Eden versus X ETH NFT marketplace. We're creating market competition across every blockchain. So now every marketplace is now effectively competing with one another through Emblem Vault, because if I could go trade, right, if we'll use this example with Rare Pepes, if we deploy Rare Pepe collection on Ordinals, on Solana, on all the Ethereum layer 2s, Escriptions, and in Ethereum, users now have the option to go trade at whatever competitive marketplace they see fit. Do they want to go be a collector? Do they want zero place marketplace fees? And that is the options that we want to give users and to really kind of grow the pie. That's what we're looking to do here, is grow. We're not here to compete over the current pie share. We're looking to grow this as large as possible. And then, you know, we can be a little bit more competitive there. And of course, with royalties, it's kind of this soft, you know, it's this kind of soft topic that's just consistently just going back and forth. Just the current options we see now, it just doesn't seem like whatever is being put in place. If it's this enforcement kind of standard, which is what's been happening now with blocking other marketplaces, that doesn't seem to be what's working. But if you're going on the other side, and incentivizing users to participate in your marketplace through airdrops or whatever it is, we think that's kind of a largely underexplored area. And we are also looking into options in that capacity. I actually put a tweet about that yesterday, that you could create, essentially use ERC 721C with curated collections and create this like enforced contract standard. So there's a lot of options out there, and we can literally go both ways. But right now in the current form, it just feels like royalties are at zero, and we're looking to open this up and create as much liquidity as possible so that users can then go participate in whatever environment they see fit for whatever their use case is.
Yeah, I think that's a very good take on it. It's been a complicated issue. I was just kind of curious because I don't know what the answer is. Like you said, it's just like I see a lot of people trying a lot of different things. I imagine the market will eventually make a decision collectively, you know, but it's going to be a long-standing issue for sure. But just taking it back to kind of like technology, I'm going to go back to just like directly to Bitcoin with Zeta Chain. I'm just curious, like, are your tech currently, is it possible to build, I'm not sure how far Runes is, but is it possible to build like technologies like with Pipe and other technologies on Zeta Chain? Or is there certain specifics that can only be used with Zeta Chain at the time in the testnet, or pretty much can anything be explored?
So right now, Omnichain supports Zeta Chain's Omnichain contract support fungible tokens, and the way you interact with Omnichain contracts from Bitcoin is by sending a native transaction with a memo, and this memo encodes the address of the contract you want to call, as well as all the parameters for this contract call. So, for example, if you want to perform a swap, you would include the swap contract address in the memo, as well as the destination token that you want to swap to, also in the memo, right? And this gets transferred by validators of Zeta Chain to the EVM running on Zeta Chain, and the contract gets called. So this right now we're focusing on fungible tokens first because it's impossible to do everything at once. We'll probably focus on NFT next, and the architecture of the system requires us to kind of think about every type of data separately, because you need to make sure that it's compatible with the data on other blockchains, right? So the reason why we started with fungible tokens, because it's just it's the most used, the most popular use case, but it's also the easiest one to do, because all chains have have fungible tokens, but NFTs, for example, are expressed differently on different chains. So it's a bit of a harder problem to solve in a centralized way. But I think that's kind of the next step, and we'll be going from there onto other types of data and value.
That's awesome. I think it's just interesting, like you said, just the different use cases that these new technologies can have or like add, and currently I wanted to again go back to Emblem Vault. I know you guys talk a lot about mainly like NFTs, but tokenization you say is pretty important, and you've incorporated like the Pepe community. Is the Pepe community just primarily ETH, or is there any like form of the community on Bitcoin? Because I've heard of obviously the Pepe token on Ethereum, but I know there's a Pepe BRC20 token on Bitcoin, but I'm just kind of curious what you guys are seeing in that space.
I think Pepe's everywhere, man. Yeah, I think Pepe and rare Pepes on Counterparty, we're able to capture meme culture, right? And so if you're in the community, which we are, there's definitely like a core group of early adopters who are kind of Counterparty native and hardcore Bitcoiners, really. But when you talk to them and you figure out what's going on, they're smart enough to realize, like, look, there's no liquidity on Counterparty. And so they're completely willing to use a service like Emblem Vault to get their rare Pepes onto OpenSea and sell them there and access liquidity. And I think, you touched on it a little bit earlier in this talk. It's like people will learn stuff if it can make them money. And, at the core, I think, that's almost like that's what crypto's about at this core, which is like people will figure out most anything if they feel like it's going to enable them to make some money or get ahead. And so, like, when we talk about what's going to be the next thing for crypto or for Bitcoin, we're all kind of guessing as what's going to be the next thing to really move the needle. But I can guarantee whatever it is, it's something that makes people money. And, whether it's, fine art on Bitcoin or some social network or real world assets, don't really know. But I think, at Emblem, we're excited about it because no matter where it happens, being able to bring it to Bitcoin or move it from Bitcoin to other chains is what we're all about, and pretty excited about it. What's going to be next?
Yeah, same here. And I just want to say, if people want to start asking questions, feel free to raise your hand or come up to the stage. We're going to open it up for questions here pretty soon. We just wanted to make sure that we give the speakers a little bit more time to kind of talk about some of the stuff they're doing and just kind of answer a few questions from us. But as soon as somebody's ready, yeah, Dennis, if you're ready, if you have a question, go for it.
No, I was just using emoji to encourage people asking questions.
Oh, perfect. Okay, just making sure. Yeah, so then while people are kind of gearing up for the questions, I just want to touch again kind of on what we do and what we're doing at the Bitcoin Startup Lab. Essentially, we're a pre-accelerator for people who don't understand maybe what that is. It's basically we help people who have an idea. Obviously, it's focused on Bitcoin technology currently. We help you to take your idea as a founder, find another founder. We help you to develop essentially how to do a pitch, how to do your customer interviews, find the fulcrum for your business, and that way you have like a target that you're actually aimed at that's going to make you successful for your business. And then through all of that process and all that preparation, we're going to help you essentially get a pitch together to pitch in front of some really, really seriously high level investors, and you actually have the opportunity to raise funding that day. Now, not saying that'll be the last time you interact with these people, because even after the Bitcoin Startup Lab, even after we complete the pre-accelerator, we're still connected to you. We have right now, like we're working with teams from our last accelerator, meeting up weekly to just try to help coach and kind of guide them along in order to meet whatever their next goal is for their project. There is some that have already raised or are currently raising funding, which is awesome to see at the stage that they're at. There are others who are just trying to pivot and kind of just figure out the landscape and the trajectory they want to go, because obviously the market, we're technically still in a bear market somewhat, but at the same time, we're obviously also beginning to kind of move outside of that. So I just wanted to give an overview of that real quick and just kind of let you know we still have a grace period for our signups. Again, the link is in the very top if you'd like to follow it. But again, just kind of like jumping into some more technical questions on Bitcoin. I'm gonna go again, like with Emblem Vault. Like, what are some of the things that you've seen being built on Bitcoin? I know you mentioned some of it, but what kind of excites you, and kind of what are you looking to see being built on Bitcoin?
Yeah, I'll take this one first. In terms of what gets me excited the most is kind of DeFi on Bitcoin. I think I've kind of studied the history of protocols built on Bitcoin, and there's been a handful of attempts at it, but nothing has really taken off, right? You have kind of these side chains that have tried to do DEXs and different variations of it. But for the fungible standard, BRC20 has really taken off and taken the lead. You're going to have some other competitive fungible standards with runes and track and pipe and atomicals, meta mining, which is also interesting. So I think once you find kind of this clear victor in terms of the fungible realm, you'll start seeing some of these DeFi applications pop up. I mean, Unisat is already doing kind of their own, module for a swap tool. You have Omnisat who's trying to do something similar. So for that kind of interests me. But ultimately, one thing that's really underexplored as well, which is probably something I'd be working on if I wasn't at Emblem, is on this idea of like storing important documents on it, maybe building some sort of like Bitcoin library or some sort of portal, that gives Bitcoin savvy users the ability to go in and inscribe their whistleblower documents or their essays, right, or their books or things that are important to them in terms of documentation. You could do things like creating something for like LLCs or business documents, right, proof of whatever you need. I think that's like a big idea that no one has really decided to take on yet. And to me, once that is simplified and accessible, it'll be something I'll be using, and I'm sure a lot of other people will as well. So I'm just surprised I haven't really seen that yet, but it's something I'm looking for.
Very cool. And then I see we have Albert again, the CEO of the Bitcoin Startup Lab, rejoining us. So I'm just curious, even for Albert, what are some technologies on Bitcoin that you're kind of excited to see? We've kind of covered both with Zeta and also with Emblem Vaults, but I know you're hands deep in working with a lot of these technologies. So I'm just curious what you're excited about.
At the top of the list is, I think DeFi is very high on that list. It's just, when we see we can now have all the programmability we have on Ethereum, but now using Bitcoin as a settlement layer, it just makes sense to me to leverage Bitcoin's immutable database quality for a financial ecosystem that could rival or at least be an alternative to the centralized powers that be. I just don't see how that could happen on another chain as effectively as on Bitcoin. So DeFi is definitely top of that list. And in my opinion, ordinals and all these other things won't really truly take off until the center of DeFi shifts from Ethereum to Bitcoin, which I anticipate or predict will happen. The beginnings of that will become very obvious within the next 12 months, and then before the next Bitcoin happening in 2028, the center of DeFi or most of DeFi will have shifted to Bitcoin. Now, with that said, there's a lot of infrastructure and enabling technology that need to be built in order for all that to happen effectively. So I'm also very bullish on any kind of infrastructure. So it's exciting what Emblem Vault is building and others are building as a collaborative effort to to really make this a possibility, right? To take the pain out of creating these things, because it is sort of a pain right now, right? So those problems will be fixed with the infrastructure and with enabling technologies. I'm also really bullish, specifically on, say, Bitcoin native assets, and then these could be like ordinals, or these could be rare sats. It could be even like BRC20 tokens or Pipe or the imminent the Rune token, and then can people build a layer that links to these Bitcoin native assets and then create a smart contract capabilities on top of them? That would be very, very interesting to to evolve them beyond just meme tokens and to create real utility for users. That's also something I'm really bullish about, and because these are Bitcoin native things, you can't really build them anywhere else, so they have a natural necessity. So you don't have to compare, like, is it better for DeFi to be on Bitcoin or Ethereum or somewhere else, right? These are just Bitcoin native, period. And then finally, any kind of, like, say, fun or gaming or like these consumer facing products that can exist completely in the software space first, right? So I'm talking about what I'm bullish about in the next, say, 12 months, within 12 months, software based, and going beyond that, perhaps maybe even linking to real world assets after that. Yeah, so that's my take. Back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And just talking about DeFi, I'm just curious, like for Dennis and the Zeta team, what do you guys think? Like, what is DeFi? What is it going to look like on Zeta Chain? Like, what do you guys see from the Bitcoin side? Do you guys see a lot of DeFi projects being built currently? And like, what again? I mentioned this before, but is there any specific like DeFi projects that you're interested in seeing being built?
Yeah, so there are two sides to this. I think one is up and coming projects that are building on the chain from zero, right, natively, new projects, and it's pretty cool to see them integrate with Bitcoin with the help of Zeta Chain, the toolkit that Zeta Chain provides. But at the same time, it's we're focusing our kind of efforts on bringing established projects to Zeta Chain. They might not be integrated from the very beginning to other chains, right? They're coming to Zeta Chain as an EVM L1, right? But the fact that people can still create pools on these established services with these wrapped tokens, wrapped BTC, wrapped ETH, and trade them and leverage them in any way, and then just withdraw them themselves, right, without going through a contract. They just cold withdraw on a token, and it gets back to its original chain. So I see there, yeah, a couple of layers of integration. One is like full integration with other chains through omni-chain contracts, and the other level of integration is when established projects just deploy on Zeta Chain, provide their services to users, and users are free to deposit and use these dApps on their own. I think these established projects will eventually connect to other chains, just because the crypto industry is just moving into the direction of multi-chain. You can't really ignore that. But it takes a lot of effort to migrate an existing project to being an omni-chain contract, even though it's so simple with Zeta Chain. Like, if you have a huge software project, it's just not a small feat to migrate, but eventually that's going to happen, and we're just building a platform for this to be as easy as possible, both for small projects as well as huge established projects.
That's great. And I wanted to ask also Emblem Vault, like, how do you guys view DeFi in the Bitcoin spectrum? Like, what do you guys see and what do you guys want to see in that space?
So yeah, Bitcoin DeFi, I think it has large capabilities, to be the same size of Ethereum or larger. I mean, just because of the sheer pool of it, it's still missing, some of the basic kind of DeFi protocols and things like swap tools. It's still in its early infancy. In terms of like what else can it do, I'm interested to see if there's anything like Bitcoin native DeFi that can exist, maybe leveraging the UTXO model of some sort, or create some sort of DeFi product that doesn't exist anywhere else. This is like one thing I've been kind of looking for in ordinals, in terms of just what is inherently unique to the ecosystem that doesn't exist anywhere else. Because right now it's been primarily just taking stuff that exists on all these other chains, and then a bunch of teams kind of coalesce around one of them, and then all of them will try to put 3 or 4 different variations of one product, and then eventually a market winner will emerge. But I haven't really seen anything native to the ecosystem yet, I guess, outside of like the inscription itself with putting the data in Bitcoin, but still looking to see if there's something unique. And I think if there is, then that I think will be another one of these like big aha moments where you'll see like a huge rush, because it's just something new that, whether DGen just want to speculate on it or whether it has actual full utility. I think that is something that the ecosystem needs and just has not emerged yet.
Yeah, I think that's a very valuable point. Like you said, some of the tools aren't quite there yet. But I wanted to, again, open the floor for questions if anybody wants to come up while we're kind of going over some of this stuff. And I just wanted to also highlight again, like with the Bitcoin Startup Lab, kind of what we do one more time is basically just we're here to help you as a pre-accelerator take your idea from idea stage to actually like the formation of a business. And we also not only do that, but we also help with top tier mentoring. We give you the tools and resources to understand and work with a lot of these technologies and meet the perfect co-founder through our co-founder matching program. And I just wanted to ask, I know James has touched on it. I wanted to just ask again, Albert, if you wanted to just add some more to what we've kind of covered with the Bitcoin Startup Lab program, just to kind of just add another overview from your perspective.
Yeah, I'm happy to say. Well, I mean, it's in a nutshell, it just takes your project and makes it investment ready. So it could be just an idea. You could even have an MVP, or in some cases, people who graduate from accelerators and raise money, and then they hit a plateau or they hit a ceiling, and they realize their foundation of the startup is not solid, and therefore they need to start over, right? Rethink things, recalibrate. We also have people coming back to the pre-accelerator to just make sure that they've crossed their T's and dotted their I's, so to speak, and make sure with our scientific method to build an investment-ready startup, a solid investment-ready startup, and then take another crack at getting into accelerators and raising pre-seed funding. I think it's interesting to note that 100% of the teams that both completed our program and got into accelerator so far up to date, 100% have raised pre-seed funding. Okay, so that's definitely a much higher average than if you just jump to an accelerator, which I do recommend maybe 1% of the time, but 99% of the time it's better to just go through a pre-accelerator and make sure you have a solid foundation before you get into the accelerator. So that's my contribution to it. I'm actually curious. Hi, Adam. Good to see you up here.
Yeah, man. I was just gonna layer on the
Yeah.
I've dealt with so many different devs over the last few years, and just the service that you guys provide, and I've helped you guys with basically helping devs who often get really, really siloed in building and don't have access to marketing tools and networking tools. I just encourage if any devs are in the in this space listening, to take part in something like this, where very likely you'll meet somebody who can kind of provide that other part of a business, which it's not just building, it's marketing and networking and and doing all these other aspects of a successful startup. I just think it's really critical. And so I encourage people to really take part in what you guys are offering here, because it's just, we all know devs who have built something and maybe even built something really cool and useful, but because they don't have that other aspect to their startup, they can't really do anything with it. And so I definitely encourage, any devs out there listening, to reach out and do this sort of program where it can really help you.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that. Oh, go ahead, Jake. You first.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and Adam's speaking for existence, because that's exactly the story of how Adam and I ended up at Emblem Vault. Is they had a really cool technology, and they found us as kind of, some of the top leaders in this idea of a historical NFT space. And we joined the team, and now we've actually expanded past the historical NFT space to become, this really multi-chain tool. So, maybe your devs, if you're a dev and you don't have, a marketing arm, just look for leaders in that section, whether they have a larger following, or you just think they generally have like a good way they go about and carry themselves with type of educational content. There's a variety of it, but yeah, as Adam says, could not emphasize enough to really just research your niche, no matter how small that it is, and find that leader and approach them, and maybe take them on as a co-founder. Very, very pivotal.
Yeah, that's great advice, Jake. Thanks for mentioning that, and thanks. I'm really glad, Adam, you mentioned how we complement devs. I started off my career as a software engineer in Silicon Valley, and my first three startups, like you said, I was just focused on building. It's like it's a common mistake for developers, right? Our strongest skill is building, and that, and we, every single problem. We think it's a nail, and we take the hammer, right? Take the hammer out and try to build it and try to solve it with building it. And yeah, it didn't work out the first three times. I finally figured things out, and the Bitcoin Startup Lab is actually really to help developers who want to be founders, and also people who have marketing experience. You can also find those devs to couple up with, because you really do need to have a team that understands both to come together to create true value for your market. And then so co-founder matching is a big component of our pre-accelerator. Over 50% of the teams that get through the 3-month program, they end up finding a co-founder. And up to date, 3 out of 4 companies that raise pre-seed funding have found a co-founder through our program. So, and usually the combo is, if I'm marketing, then I'm missing a dev, or vice versa, right? So it's a great match. So I wanted to. This is Jeff. Before we go back to you, I wanted to go on a tangent a little bit, just like a small tangent, because I was asking Adam the other day in Twitter DMs about the tool you guys are launching that allows people to migrate to ordinals. I think that's such a cool. This is like one of the enablers I'm talking about, and there's going to be this exodus of people migrating their collections to ordinals. And I mean, I think this could be the entire ecosystem actually just helping people and collections and artists do that. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We did touch on it a little earlier in the space, but for anybody who didn't hear, yeah, it's basically with what Jake described with this vaulting mechanism. We can basically create vaults on any chain. And so what we'll do is we'll do basically vaulting as an ordinal. And so, for example, if you had a CryptoPunk and you wanted to bring it on Bitcoin through ordinals, basically you're vaulting or sending that CryptoPunk to a wallet address on Ethereum. That wallet address, the private keys would be stored in an ordinal, and then it could trade on the ordinals ecosystem. And what it does is it keeps the provenance of that initial CryptoPunk, but it allows it to completely trade on the ordinals ecosystem. And so all this DeFi that we're talking about, or swapping, or whatever, however you want to trade it, or if we're lucky, gaming or whatever that are built upon ordinals, you can use your CryptoPunk in that environment. And then if anybody wants to actually take it back and actually get the native asset, they simply would burn the ordinal and basically take control of the CryptoPunk through the private keys and take control of the CryptoPunk again on Ethereum. And that's kind of how we work right now, taking counterparty assets to Ethereum, but it works the same. And so you'd be able to move your assets, across all blockchains. And, hopefully this ordinal ecosystem, grows and explodes, and everybody wants to bring their CryptoPunks onto ordinals. I mean, it's how amazing would that be? It'd be awesome, right? So yeah, we're here for it and excited to support it.
Okay, so that's super exciting. I'm really excited for that. So, how is this different from just inscribing, there's the teleburn method. Let's say that we burn one thing on X chain and then inscribe on another chain. Can you juxtapose that so people can understand?
Yeah, that is totally different. So in that case, you're literally you're taking your asset. So there were a couple of people who burned their Bored Ape, right? Sent it to an address that in theory nobody controls, and then at the same time minted an ordinal to kind of represent that asset. That's not what we're doing. We actually, because we come from this historical NFT, space, we believe in keeping the provenance of the initial asset. So a CryptoPunk, in theory, you could send it to a burn address and then mint an ordinals, and in theory it would somehow symbolize it or whatever. We're not doing that. We're saying you're still controlling that CryptoPunk. So the provenance chain isn't broken. You're simply trading that asset on a different chain. So you're trading it as an ordinal, but that initial asset remains, and you can always burn the ordinal and get back the initial asset. And I'll take it to the extreme, right? Of whatever. You have a Solana asset, and that Solana asset or NFT, I can't even name one, but say you had, I don't know, a DGOT on Solana and you wanted to trade it as an ordinal, you would be able to do that. We're going to facilitate that. So basically all assets will be able to come back to Bitcoin.
Wow. So do I have additional ordinals now if I use it? Is that what's happening, or is it like a placeholder?
Basically what it would be is, it would basically create an ordinal to represent that, or to actually create the vault would be an ordinal. And so that ordinal would trade. And then when you wanted to get back to that original asset, say a CryptoPunk, you would be burning or sending that ordinal to a burn address that would, unveil basically the private keys, which would allow you to take those private keys for, in this example, a CryptoPunk, import them into an Ethereum wallet, and take access or take control of that asset in its original form, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's beginning to make sense. And just to sort of show the power of like this type of enabling technology, like let's compare it to, if I had to go and code this out myself and do it all myself versus just using your application, what's the time save? I mean, what's, like, juxtapose those two things for me, for the audience.
If you coded it out, I guess you'd be our competitor. I think it's a pretty heavy lift. Our founder Shannon Code's been coding this since basically 2017.
Yeah, would it make sense?
So
would it make sense for like individual holders to do this, right? So it's almost like prohibitive. It's almost
it's like impossible.
Yeah.
It's literally impossible.
Right.
I mean, not to say, not to encourage a startup, but it's a pretty significant tech lift to build this infrastructure out. So that's a pretty nice moat for us. But yeah, it can be done. Obviously, we did.
Yeah. Well, so when can we start paying for the service and enjoying the service?
Well, the reality is we're migrating the rest of our collection now to what we're calling curated collections. That should take probably about another month to finalize that. And one of the first things we have on tap after that, other than finalizing our marketplace, is building this ordinals infrastructure so people can trade ordinals or trade assets from other chains as ordinals. Yeah, so it's top of the list.
So excellent. So in a month we could start using it. So that's exciting.
Well, maybe not a month. Let's say by the start of the new year, we're hoping to have it done for sure.
Early Q1
for sure.
Yeah, okay.
100%,
Well before the Bitcoin halving. Wonderful. And so what's the process like to get a collection on there? Like, let's say I'm a collection owner and I want to bring my collection to ordinals now. What's the process
so
like?
right now, and I'll give you an example the opposite way. So we did an art project with an artist called Coldy, where he wanted to release his art as ordinals, but wanted to be able to sell it to his collectors who are all on Ethereum, right? And so we helped him with the process of inscribing his ordinals, putting them in emblem vaults, and then doing the sale on OpenSea. Very successful, sold out in whatever 15 minutes on OpenSea. For us, it's just the exact opposite. It's crafting the ordinals collection, with working with whoever, an artist or project, and then just kind of crafting that and doing it. And so yeah, the process is, it's a little bit involved, but we're getting better and faster as we've kind of launched all these. Now what, I don't know, Jake, is it going to be 30 different curated collections? So we're getting better at it.
Yeah, 30. We should have about 35 collections. But yeah, Albert, I love the question, because you're really thinking ahead of like where we're going. Like ultimately, right now, it's this white glove service to create these curated collections. Ultimately, what we want to get it down to is getting it automated. Maybe something similar to kind of what Manifold looks like, to where users can come in and just plug in their criteria, right? So you say, I have these 1,000 NFTs on Ethereum. Here's the JSON file for the metadata and the traits, and I want 1,000 vaults and X parameters, and you kind of just all plug it in and kind of do it all on yourself. That's ultimately where we want it to go. We're just not completely there yet, but once we get on the other side of this migration, that's where the fun really starts, and that's when we really get to open it up and have a lot of this type of innovative ideas and products.
Yeah, no, I love that strategy. And that's a great strategy for startups, for the audience, is to do the white glove service first and then figure out all the key steps in the process and start automating it, right? Step by step. That's a great strategy. And that's how a lot of great startups are built. How much, like, what's the business model for this? Like, let's say, what would it cost a collection owner to enjoy the service?
Yeah. Also, man, no wonder why you're the creator of this. You just ask the great questions about a startup. Yeah, we've had to really figure it out, what the Emblem business model is, because up until before the royalty battle started on Ethereum, Emblem was primarily sourcing its revenue through royalty fees. So we had to really take a look in and say, okay, royalties are kind of going to zero, or at least it's going to be in this unstable kind of environment for the foreseeable future. Where do we kind of come in and figure out what we want to do? So in that process, we started charging a vaulting fee in Ethereum. Right now, it's just pegged $20. So whatever the $20 USD mark is, it automatically charges you in Ethereum for it. So it comes out to about 0.01. Ultimately, we want to build this kind of ecosystem to where we don't have to live off of royalties, and we kind of live off of these we call them vault interactions, whether it's like a vault creation, a vault jump. Let's say you want to take let's say I have a CryptoPunk on Bitcoin and I want to move it to Solana. You just hit this jump feature, which we're building out right now. And then we make kind of that fixed fee there. Same with unlocking. And then with Emblem markets and with these different types of products, our second kind of primary source is what we're working towards is kind of this API model, the B2C kind of side, or B2B side, I mean, because we do have about 10 different teams that are using Emblem APIs. We want to expand on that so that one of our like kind of key products is called this, like, we call it native vaulting, to where any team can basically just plug into this API, pay per service, and just create their own vaulting experience through the Emblem Vault technology for whatever their type of parameters are. And then, of course, there's kind of these like unexpected revenue streams that'll kind of pop up here in the near future. And we also have 2 or 3 other revenue models that we want to bring, but it'll be tied within Emblem markets. And so we haven't really spoken on those publicly yet, but kind of the foundation of Emblem is just this, we call it like the vault interactions, very kind of similar to how bridges and wraps work right now. And I guess centralized exchanges, where it's just like the on-off ramps and all the interactions within the ecosystem. That's what we're moving to. But we do have some very innovative ideas that we're kind of working on, a handful of them, just not ready to release them yet.
Yeah, super. No, the transaction, like pay per transaction or pay per jump. That really makes sense. Also, the APIs can become very interesting as well. Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing. Um, so, audience, you guys reach out if you guys are a collection owner or have any special requests for Emblem Vault. Now's the time to reach out and get involved. Back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do now is, again, I want to see if there's anybody in the audience who'd like to come up. I think we've covered quite a variety of topics. We've got a lot of people here, but while people, again, are thinking about coming up, I just wanted to get some final thoughts just on anything you guys want to just talk about with Zeta Chain or with Emblem Vaults. And I want to start first with Dennis from Zeta Chain, if you just want to give some final thoughts before we take questions.
Yeah, sure. So I think Bitcoin is going to become more and more important than it has ever been, and it's a very good time to start building and kind of getting ahead of the curve uh, and build contracts that can really talk to all the chains and can seamlessly um, uh, manage assets no matter which chain a user is coming from. So we're building the tools exactly for that, and we invite you to join. We have a lot of tutorials to get you started, and we're here to help you along the way.
Perfect. And then Emblem Vault, if you just wanted to give some final thoughts.
Yeah, I guess I have one, and then I'll pass it off to Adam. The conversation's cool. Dude, Dennis, you guys have a cool product at Zeta Chain. I actually wasn't familiar, but it makes me very excited about the kind of multi-chain products that are popping up. Before ordinals, this idea of like multi-chain, at least from the Bitcoin community, they're very resistant towards it. It feels like now, kind of kick down the door, and there's just now people are really realizing the massive opportunity there, and just being a little bit more neutral to blockchain exploration than this tribalistic kind of mentality. So very excited, very, very excited for that. Future is really bright. I still, even Emblem Vault, just on a personal standpoint, I find Ordinal's ecosystem the most interesting of all the kind of blockchains that I've interacted with over the last 2 years or so, or I guess a year since I've been there. And so I just actively participate. I think there's going to be something really big that has yet to surface in terms of, again, maybe this Bitcoin native product. So I'm just actively looking for that. And Bitcoin has a lot of brilliant minds, but it has a different type of mind that exists here, right? Bitcoin's a little bit slower. It's more secure, more decentralized. So it brings on different types of builders, which I think is just really awesome to see. And then even see some of the like Ethereum native builders come over and then really see that like mentality switch or flip is also really, really enlightening and bright. So yeah, really looking forward to all of it.
Yeah, just to echo what Jake said there, I think ordinals, if they haven't done anything, it's a change in Bitcoin culture. I think has been the biggest thing, where you can still be a Bitcoiner and appreciate what's happening on other chains and want to integrate that stuff onto Bitcoin. I think it's eyes open for what the next big thing might be in order to act quickly, bring it onto Bitcoin. I think we've seen that a little bit with the social fi tokens and stuff like that. And spinning up quickly on Bitcoin to try this stuff out and keep your eyes peeled for the next big thing. I know we are. And if you see it, man, hit me in the DMs. We're always open.
Awesome. I may take you up on that offer. And then this is the last call for questions. And then I just wanted to also give Albert the opportunity for any closing thoughts that he may have.
Yeah, no, super thrilled to see all the things happening on Bitcoin. If you guys are a founder or aspiring founder, and Dennis has piqued your interest to build a Bitcoin startup with Zeta Chain, come reach out to us. We're taking applications. The grace period is over on November 30th, so you have some time, but strike it while it's hot. Sometimes we can't get around to all the applications towards the end of it, and we're going to be starting December 11th. And this is the last cohort before the Bitcoin halving, so this is going to be super exciting. Also, super thrilled to have Adam as one of our mentors and speakers for our next cohort. And also, thank you, Adam, for your contributions before. It was really fun, and And as you mentioned, your experience and just devs need to understand marketing, right? Understand market positioning, understand how to enter the market. So this is why it's so important to have mentors such as Adam as part of our ecosystem, to help people, people who are, building right now in Bitcoin, helping more people to build on Bitcoin, because the way we win and create a sustainable Bitcoin economy is by working together. And we still have a lot of work to do. I mean, I know some people are bullish to the point where Bitcoin will be around. Bitcoin can't fail. But from my point of view, in my opinion, I think we have to fight for it. We have to really fight for it and build useful technologies, right? People were saying Bitcoin is like digital gold, and I definitely think there's a high probability that's going to happen. But Bitcoin doesn't move like gold yet, right? It moves more like a tech stock. But one day it will move more like gold, and even in bear markets, it's going to go up. But that day will come only when more companies like Emblem Vault and Zeta Chain combine forces, and with everyone else in the ecosystem to build more utility, more useful cases on Bitcoin, and then it will be like digital gold. So that's what I have to say. So sign up now, guys. Also, thank you, Dennis, for being a new mentor, right, in our eminent next cohort.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
All right,
Jeff,
so
do you
ahead.
want to take questions?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody coming up. This is kind of your last chance. If you have any questions, if you want to ask, just raise your hand or just come up. Just send an invite for speaking, and then we'll get you up here. So this is pretty much your last call for that. But again, like Albert was saying, we're part of the Bitcoin Startup Lab. We're going to be doing weekly spaces every week, so look for those. Primarily, they're going to be on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, but we may open it up just depending on kind of like if there's a special event that takes place, or if we just need to expand it for the sake of one of our guests. But we're definitely thankful for everybody being here. And again, if you have a question, this is your last chance. So I'm not seeing anybody kind of come up.
Yeah, let's give people a chance. Don't worry about asking what you think might be a silly question, because probably other people are thinking the same thing. So you'd be asking a question for a lot of people, so it's okay. No question too big or too small. And while you guys are thinking about the questions, we do have a few other shows this week. We have a Bitcoin Innovation Show that's happening this Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and we've invited the founder of Crypto Oracle, and also the head of the Crypto Oracle Web3X AI Accelerator that's going to be launched next year. We're going to be talking about the intersection between AI and Bitcoin. That's going to be a super interesting talk on Thursday. And every Friday we have a Fundraising Friday show. And this is when we invite either a pre-seed investor to talk about what it takes, or what milestones you have to hit for your startup in order to get pre-seed investment from professional pre-seed investors in Web3, and or we invite up a founder that has done the pre-seed fundraising, and they'll speak from a founder perspective what they had to do to get the pre-seed fundraising. So we're hoping that these public talks and services help founders. Make it slightly easier. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still going to be very, very tough building a startup, but hopefully make it a little bit easier and meet a few more people to make your journey to building a Bitcoin startup more pleasant.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. I saw you come up. If you want to ask your question, feel free.
I'm in Australia, so it's 6 a.m. here. Just wondering, with the Startup Lab, how the classes would run with timing wise, and if you work with anyone in Australia or.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have tried to. We've invited a couple of people from Australia, but they end up not making it past like the first month because of the time. Our classes are usually Monday to Thursday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. So that would be the main challenge.
Yeah, okay. And so you can't just listen to recordings. You have to kind of be interactive.
Well, you definitely can listen to the recordings. We record everything, and anyone who's part of the cohort has access to that. But you're not getting the full benefit of the program because those classes they're half lectures, right? Like a step-by-step process on how to build one of the main elements of a investment ready startup. But the other half is Q&A, is getting to know these mentors who are either founders or investors, right? Pre-seed investors. So it's that there's a lot of value in building that connection before you actually have to do fundraising or get into accelerator. But yeah, so that would be
so what
like
time is it
a
over there
judgment call.
now?
It is 11 a.m. 11:15
okay.
Pacific
So
time.
yeah,
Yeah. So it'd be like,
yeah, because
I
I
think
saw
it'd be 3
another.
a.m. for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw another BTC startup things starting at 4 a.m. So yeah, it's yeah, okay. So 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning if I want to join. Okay. Well, that's my only.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm keen,
So
but yeah, I don't know. I'll have to figure that one out.
it'd probably be a pretty big lifestyle change to wake up that early.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
Yeah, so 60, if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, thanks. So I joined this space a little bit. I just came in a bit late, so I missed out on a lot of the conversation that was happening. But I'm very happy to see Zeta Chain and Emblem Vault to be on the show. Our project has also worked with BTC Startup Lab before. It has been a extremely amazing experience meeting a lot of projects and developers that's working in the Bitcoin space. And I think this might be, you might have already talked about it, but I'm super curious to know about, the long-term roadmap for Emblem Vault. But I guess this is the ending of the space, so I'm just hopping in to say maybe I'll shoot a DM to Jake or to the Emblem Vault Twitter account if that's okay, so that you don't have to repeat the things that you already said to the audience. And yeah, would love to also share with you what we're building, because essentially what my team is building is also trying to maximize the possibility of moving digital assets between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other ecosystem. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it.
sounds great. Yeah, just reach out to us by DM. Always happy to chat. And you can just go back and listen too. We did talk about it quite a bit. So I'm sure the space is recorded. You can just go back and listen. But yeah, happy to chat in DMs.
Thank you.
Yes, that's correct. The space is recorded, so yeah, you could definitely review it. And then we'll also kind of like we did this more as a morning space, but if we see more people coming in like in the afternoon, like we're kind of seeing people or in the early afternoon, like we're seeing people now, we can always make adjustments to that as well. But for the people who are here, everybody who's just come in, I want to give you the opportunity to ask a question also, since I've seen a few people join. And then maybe in the meantime, we can kind of just kind of go over like, or maybe one more question if that's okay with everybody, just to kind of give people some time to think. And so I know we've had a long, deep discussion on Bitcoin technology and ordinals. I see Frog Toshi has joined from Bitcoin Frogs, the head of Bitcoin Frogs. So I'm just curious again, like with Emblem Vaults, you guys again are of course moving into ordinals technology, and you guys have discussed that pretty thoroughly. But going back to Zeta Chain, I know you guys mentioned about adding NFTs like in the future as a possibility for your OmniChain spectrum. But what do you guys think? Are you guys looking particularly like at ordinals first, or do you see ordinals as kind of like a major asset class that you want to see people builders building on a Zeta Chain, or are you seeing that already?
So yeah, when we do support NFTs, we'll probably make it Bitcoin compatible first, and then go from there. Just because we think that there is so much potential in Bitcoin NFTs, and making it Bitcoin compatible is like high priority for us. So I can't speak for the protocol team how exactly they're going to implement this, because right now high priority is the topmost priority is mainnet. But once we're there, um, there's high probability that we're gonna do it Bitcoin first, and then move on to making it compatible with EVM chains.
Awesome, awesome. And so again, if you're gonna ask a question, now's your time. I'm just gonna kind of just go over one more thing real quick before we kind of close the space. But mainly, I just want to again let you all know that we're the Bitcoin Startup Lab, and as Albert mentioned, we do have two other shows on Thursday and Friday. The Innovation Show on Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, and then we have the Fundraising Fridays again at 1 p.m. Pacific time. But that one's obviously focused more on investment. So if you're a founder or you know a founder, I just want to encourage you. That's a great place to learn a lot. Not only learn a lot, but also to connect with the speakers, because as you go through like the Bitcoin Startup Lab like mentoring like program, you're going to hear from different investors and people from accelerators, and it's good to start connecting in that space, because I know from like a developer perspective or even just a business perspective, it's a little different, in the investment space and in the fund space. So I just think it's a real opportunity if you're looking to grow your project or you're a project founder. And of course, the easiest way again is if you come and join our cohort. We have our winner cohort 2023 happening in about a month roughly, but the sign up deadline will be at the end of this month. Again, you can just click in the top. Our application sign up is there. Just follow it through our website. Please fill out the entire application. It's for just so you have a higher probability to get an interview and just for your success. But again, I just want to start thanking everybody for being here. First, I just want to thank again Emblem Vault for your time, for being here, for supporting the space. Also for the Chain team for being here and kind of just sticking around for like the entire space. Really appreciate that. Albert, again, the CEO, Bitcoin Startup Lab, thank you again for being here and supporting and just helping keep things going. And then also, again, James in the background, helping out behind the scenes with a lot of what's going on and a lot of what people don't see. And also Zixi for joining us as well. Thank you for just coming on stage and asking some engaging questions. But as for that, that pretty much closes this space. Again, look for many others that we'll be hosting. We really appreciate you guys being here, and then have a wonderful day.
Yeah, and while you guys are at it, give Emblem Vault guys a follow, and also Dennis from Zeta Chain a follow. That way you guys can follow up afterwards.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Feel free to reach out to us anytime.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.